All right, it's game number 59 for the Boston Celtics as they welcome to TD Garden Lou Williams and the Clippers right before the All-Star break. This is the Celtics pregame report. Josue Pavone here. I'm joined by Tom Westerholm of MassLive.com. Tom, this is the last one before the All-Star break, and you are my guest. You feel special or what?
I do feel special. I'm as excited to be on as I am excited for the little bit of break in basketball that we get.
I'm very excited for that, especially because I don't necessarily travel with the team, so I'm not going to have to go to a game for, almost 2 weeks, it feels like, I think? Or am I off on that? A little bit. It'll be a while.
No, that's about right. Yeah. No, and I mean, obviously, it's a nice chance to kind of catch all the festivities at home, too, which is always fun.
Yes, exactly. I'm a huge All-Star Weekend guy. I mean, I don't, clear my schedule or anything, but I think it's fun. I don't know. The 10-year-old in me looks forward to it, you know?
Yeah, I clear my schedule for the Saturday. I don't really bother with the Sunday very much. Obviously, the game is not great. I'll probably watch it this year just because of the new format, but I love the Saturday. I know everybody likes to rip on it, and people like to get their tweets off, but I just think it's a ton of fun. Yeah,
we're on the same page on that one. All right, so the Celtics have been struggling lately, of course. I mean, back-to-back losses, one against the Pacers and a blowout loss against the new-look Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, the Celtics are in second place in the Eastern Conference. It's not the end of the world for the C's, in my opinion. I mean, on the grand scheme of things. But what do you think is the biggest reason for the recent struggles?
I think that we are seeing a bit of a regression that we probably could have predicted. I think that, obviously there's guys on this team that are very talented but not as consistent offensively. I think we could have expected Jason Tatum to take a step back, and I think most people did. Obviously, you didn't expect him to continue shooting 50% from three. I think you could have expected him to kind of hit the rookie wall. I think Jalen has had some really great flashes, but he's had some moments where he looked like a 21-year-old, and obviously that game against the Cavaliers was tough for everybody. I think just offensively, this team has a lot of issues, and they're going to be able to work through some of them, and I don't think that they're as bad as they've looked over the last 4 games. I think that this break is going to really help. I think that they could use some rest. But offensively, they just do, they've got problems, and they're going to be able to stop teams. Presumably that will continue, but just being able to consistently put the ball in the basket really matters. So I think that they'll kind of get back to that. I think that some of their shots will start to fall again, but I do think that that's going to be the biggest issue as the postseason approaches.
I mean, 121 points given up against the Cavaliers. I mean, of course, this isn't the same Cavaliers team we saw, back in early January. But, I mean, do you really think the changes with these guys, I mean, guys like Rodney Hood, George Hill, Lance, Larry Nance, do you think these guys are, gonna be able to keep this up? You know what I mean? I don't want to go as far as to say it's this will never happen again. But I just feel like, yes, maybe this Cavaliers team did get better. But at the end of the day, I mean, can you count on these guys to shoot this efficiently, night in and night out? How much do the Cavs really concern you in terms of being, coming out of the East or when we're talking about them matching up against the Boston Celtics or even the Toronto Raptors that are now all of a sudden in first place in the East?
Yeah, I think they got better, and I do think
Definitely.
I think that they got a little bit better. They got a little more versatile on both ends. I think that's big, especially against the Celtics and against the Raptors. But I think most importantly, they just got the guys out of there that they needed to get out of there. And look, I mean, we all loved watching Isaiah Thomas. I really enjoyed watching Jay Crowder. I thought he was a really productive, interesting member of the team. But they just didn't work, and the personalities clashed really badly, and that was just obvious from the start. So I think that they got somewhat better on the court and just a whole lot better in the locker room. And I think LeBron kind of knows that if he wants to make a run this year, this is the team that he's going to have, and he's going to need to make it work. So when they do hit some of those rough patches, I think he's going to be a little bit less likely to maybe brush some of the guys off the way it seems like he and Isaiah brushed off that relationship really quickly. I think that he's going to be a little more focused on making it work with these guys because there's not going to be another trade deadline. There's not going to be another chance to sort of reshuffle things. So I think that they're a lot better. I think that I would pick them to come out of the East at this point. I know that's a little premature, but they still do have LeBron James, and I think that there's just enough there from a chemistry standpoint, and enough motivation to make the chemistry work that I think that they're probably going to be able to make a pretty big run at this point.
Well, out west, the Clippers also made some changes. I mean, they traded away Blake Griffin. They traded for Avery Bradley, so he's back together with Doc Rivers. What is the likelihood that this team makes a big splash in the summertime? Because at the end of the day, I mean, when you look at a deal like this, of course, it just smells like there's freeing up cap space to go out and make a huge splash in the offseason. And if that does happen, obviously, you see Doc Rivers making another go at it with guys like DeAndre Jordan. You see that they locked in Lou Williams, and who knows what's going to happen with Avery Bradley. However, my question is, what happens if that doesn't transpire? I mean, do you see Doc Rivers actually going through somewhat of a rebuild in LA, or do you think he'll actually hang it up or take his coaching elsewhere? What's your take on it?
So I think it's going to be really interesting to see, like you said, in the offseason. There was DeAndre Jordan had those comments after the trade deadline where he basically said, I think a reporter asked him, "Do you feel wanted by this organization?" And I think DeAndre said, "I don't know. What do you think?" The reporter was like, "I don't know," and DeAndre was like, "Me either." So I think it was like, there's some unhappy campers there. I liked what they did for Blake. Obviously Blake is a star. But if you're gonna, try to reshuffle things, you could do a lot worse than picking up the guys they picked up. And obviously Avery Bradley's been having kind of a tough season, but Tobias Harris is really good. I just think that he's a really good player, and he's probably one of the better wings that they've had in recent years. So I thought that was a nice pickup. As far as the offseason, and I also really like the Lou Williams signing. I thought they got him for a really good price.
Yeah,
as far as the offseason, it's so tough. Like, they've got the pieces in place to be better immediately than the Lakers if they were able to get a star, but the Lakers are still the Lakers and the Clippers are still the Clippers. Like, if you look at like a Paul George or even like a LeBron, I just have a hard time seeing those guys picking the Clippers over the Lakers. And I don't know that I think that the Lakers' exceptionalism is very much overblown. I think that people can make a name for themselves and play in OKC, or they can play in Indiana and still make a big name for themselves. But I don't think that extends to the Clippers when there's another team in LA, like the Lakers. Like, I think you kind of want that brand if you're going, to LA. So I think the Clippers would have a hard time signing a free agent. I do think they're in a nice position to rebuild. So if they did that, I think Doc Rivers would probably move on. But it'll be really interesting to see. They have a ton of options.
It's so funny if you're DeAndre Jordan thinking like, how was I the guy who, was on the pretty much committed to signing with the Dallas Mavericks, and now I'm the guy stuck here in LA while Chris Paul is chasing the title, and Blake Griffin's out in Detroit. It's funny how that all came about.
It's crazy. It's like they locked him in the room with the chairs in front of the door, and then they all left through the back door, and he was still stuck there with all the chairs in front of the door.
And even Paul Pierce is in that room as well. We'll get to him, of course, before we wrap this one up. But this edition of the Celtics pregame report is brought to you by SeatGeek. Head over to SeatGeek.com and enter the promo code Garden Report, where you can save $20 off your first purchase. That's SeatGeek is your site for the best purchases for tickets off of sporting events, concerts, events. They got you covered. SeatGeek.com. Save $20 and use the promo code Garden Report. You can save $20 off your first purchase. Paul Pierce, man, what an incredible night Sunday at TD Garden. Unforgettable night. So many special moments to talk about throughout the night. But I kind of want to get on the other side of things. I feel like this is a topic that hasn't been discussed, as much as I thought it would be. But why didn't LeBron James say anything about Paul Pierce? Like why didn't LeBron not give his props? I mean, look, I didn't expect the guy to go out there and make a surprise appearance and shake his hand in person, but I mean, he had a couple of opportunities, and I'm not sure if you were in the locker room when he was speaking to reporters, but he had a couple of opportunities to give him props for, not only getting his number retired, but of course, first ballot Hall of Famer, just to give him a salute, and he chose not to. Why do you think that was the case?
So I have a couple of theories on this. Number one, I think that I wasn't in the locker room. I think that the questions that were actually asked of him kind of gave him an out, because they never actually asked him, like...
Yes, Tom, sorry, not to cut you off, but you don't know how badly I wish I was in that locker room, because, look, I was finishing up a story. Everything happened so quickly. You know how it was. Probably, I mean, one of the most hectic games I've ever had to cover, and it was just, there was no way to go down there, make it back up for the ceremony. I just had a lot going on, and I just wish somebody just asked him, hey, Paul Pierce, what does he mean to the NBA? Something like that. Give him that window where he's sort of forced to talk about what Paul Pierce's legacy was all about.
100% agreed. I think, the questions that were asked were something along the lines of, like, did it make it any more special to do it? Something along those lines, and LeBron was just like, no. And then they said, I don't remember what the other question was, but it was very similar to that, where it was like, they didn't go directly at the question, and it was like, if you go directly at the question, he's probably going to get, have to do some kind of an answer, because otherwise it would be even more of a big deal. And I think that's one of the reasons why people aren't talking about it as much, because when we had a guy in the locker room, and he didn't really want to write the headline like LeBron doesn't want to talk about Paul Pierce. and that was reasonable because that wasn't quite what happened, but that was because of the line of questioning. It didn't quite hit it right. So anyway,
it was more like, oh, did you want to stick it to Paul Pierce? I'm like, no, don't ask him that. You know, ask him another one, a follow up after that. But yeah, I got you.
Exactly. So, but I think the other thing is that, you know, like I legitimately don't think LeBron and Paul Pierce like each other at all. I don't think it's not like a lack of respect. I think it's just they don't like each other. Like, and you know, that's kind of cool. Like, I think it's really cool to have that type of rivalry in the NBA where it's just two guys that just do not mess with each other. And like, you know, like they're both greats. You know, obviously LeBron is one of the greatest players of all time. Paul Pierce is one of the, you know, greatest members of, you know, the most you know, storied franchise in NBA history. Like, these are two like legends in the game, and they just, you know, they went at each other so hard and so bitterly, like that they just don't like each other now. I think that's pretty cool. And if that had been the case, that would have been an awesome story. But I don't think we quite got there. And you know, now I you know, maybe we'll get that kind of, you know, in the future. Maybe that's something that could come out later. But you know, that didn't really come out on Sunday night. I
just always think Paul Pierce just wishes he was just like 3 years younger. You know, I just think he thought that he could have really, taken him out. You know, 2012 obviously was really close. 2013 and so on and so forth. But yeah, it was interesting. I don't know. I was surprised that that's not being talked about more. But that's probably why he just didn't get the right questions thrown at him to sort of force him to talk about Paul Pierce. All right, I'll get you out on this, Tom. Of course, this is sort of a I wouldn't say a must win, but a win that would be convenient for a team that could use one heading into the All-Star break. But what's your prediction on tonight? Who do you think wins between the Celtics and the Clippers?
I think the Celtics will probably win tonight. They're, like you said, they kind of need this one, and the Clippers just, you know, the Celtics have been really struggling with teams that are kind of, they hit the Raptors at a time when the Raptors are playing extremely well. They hit the Cavaliers at a time when the Cavaliers are, you know, just regrouped and just got all this new blood and we're feeling really good. And, you know, they hit the Pacers at a time when Victor Oladipo just went, you know, complete Victor Oladipo on them. So I just think that the Clippers aren't quite at that level. I don't think that they're quite there, you know, this season. I think the Celtics have some nice matchups for them defensively, and I think they can do some damage that way. But, you know, it'll be a fun game to watch, and obviously the Clippers are, you know, still plenty talented. So I'll take the Celtics, but I don't think it's going to be easy by any means.
All right, Tom, I'll see you tonight, man. Here's Tom Westerholm of MassLive.com. You can check out all of his coverage on the Celtics section of MassLive.com. They got you completely covered, especially after what happened Sunday, man. You guys got like 12 articles about everything that went down on Sunday. As you know, it was just a very special night. So if you want to really live Sunday and, of course, look ahead, you should definitely go check out MassLive.com and give him a follow on Twitter at Tom_NBA. Tom, it's always fun doing this with you, man. I'll see you tonight.
Definitely, man.
Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Celtics pregame report. Make sure you check out the Garden Report on clnsmedia.com and on the YouTube channel, where Trags and I, Mike Petraglia and I, have you covered. And, of course, all the post-game coverage from the coaches and the players in the locker room. It's CLNS Media, the only place you can find full-length post-game coverage and post-game press conferences. Weekday shows air on the Celtics Newsfeed channel on iTunes, Stitcher, and the CLNS Media mobile app. For today's Boston Celtics pregame report with Josue Pavone, this is Josue Pavone signing off.